Oh, hey guys. So we're going to continue on with making some sort of complex badges and stuff like that. So this is just a little, ribbon kind of prize thing I made here. Again, we're looking at like how we use the Pathfinder tool to create more complex shapes and create more regular shapes that are sort of unified in terms of their, construction and stuff. So the whole idea here is we've got this ribbon on top. We've got this little, shall we say, wreath, this ring of stars here. Now, how do we make these little ring of stars? Well, the easiest way to make any kind of repeating pattern that goes around a circle is to create what's called a pattern brush. And the way you create a pattern brush is you simply create a shape. Now, I might choose a different little shape here. I might just choose like maybe a little rectangle, like a the red cross kind of cross or something like that, right? Let's see if we can't make something like this. You don't have to do what I'm doing, but I'm just going to show you the basics of it. So I'll just, grab this and duplicate it and maybe just rotate this around, and we can just center these right here and then unify them. And then by virtue of, creating the size, I can come over here and drag this into my brushes window. If I don't see that, I can go to window brushes, right? And then when I drag that in, it gives me the option of creating a new pattern brush, right? The pattern brush gives you the option of both the sort of scale of it. So for instance, if I want to drag the scale down slightly, make it a little bit smaller, or if I wanted to create different spacing. Say, for instance, I wanted the spaces between these to be about half the width of each cross, or if I wanted to maybe make it just double the same width, as it were, just have them sort of evenly spaced. Or even maybe a little bit more, like 150. I could have it more evenly spaced. All that stuff, it gives me the options of like changing different shapes or different, as it were, of whenever they sort of overlap and stuff. So all that stuff is something that you could do. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that because I don't need that right now. But we will create a little thing of stars here. So I'll pull this off to the side for now. And let's go ahead and create this little best in show thing here. So the first thing, obviously, I did. You probably at this point know how to do this. I really do hope this is kind of retaining some. I'm just going to create this circle here, and we'll just offset. I have the offset over here in my quick actions. Obviously, if you don't have those, once again, you go to Object, Path, Offset Path. So here, but I'll just click on Offset Path, and I want to say I just offset it by 10 pixels, or in this case, negative 10 pixels. So negative 10, and press OK, and then I want to say I did again another negative 10 just to have that in. If you wanted to go in and say, for instance, grab this guy and maybe change his color just so you can kind of see where you're at, and in between each one, and then I think I did another, this case I want to say I did like 50, so let's say offset path, and we'll just do a negative 50 here, which gives us a good sort of band, a good solid band that we can then kind of apply this little pattern brush to. And I want to say I went again another 10 down, so negative 10, just to create this little ribbon of space here, and then one more time, another 10. So let's go ahead and exclude all this and see what we got. Hey, there you go. That's fun. So again, the idea is that if you have a, in this case we had, let's see how many we had. We had one. We'll take the fill away here for just a second, just to see what we're looking with. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We had an even number, and so with the even number, that allowed us to have this this sort of space in the middle with our exclude. If we were to had one more, that one in the very center would have been solid, and we would have had a little bit different pattern. So yeah, definitely familiarize yourself with this. This is a real powerful tool to create some interesting little shapes, even beyond circles. We're going to move on from circles later on, but here we go. Let's take a look at this. So I'm going to click on my direct select tool over here, and I'm just going to grab this guy right here. So this guy right here is about 558 pixels wide or tall. So I'm going to create a circle that's 558 by 558, just by clicking once with my ellipse tool. And I'm going to center this here. We'll just get my little align tool. Let's grab these two and just center them. And I'll take this fill away and put a stroke on it, say for instance a red stroke that I can see, and I'll just shrink this down some, and I want this to be right about in the center of this. So if it's in the center, it looks like it's going to be about 510. So you think about the inner radius of this ring here, which is about 458, and this is about 559, so it's about 100 pixels. So pulling it down, about 50 or so would be about the center. All right, so just kind of eyeball that, and once again make sure it's centered here. And the way we're going to create our little brush stroke here, once again, I'm going to grab my star tool and I'm just going to make a little star. And I want to position this star. You hold down shift while you make the star. I think it defaults to 5 points. You click once and you can choose 5 points, and then you can choose its size here. I'm going to take my stroke off for just a second here and fill it up with something, say for instance, green or something that I can see against everything else. And I'm just going to sort of position it here, and I want it to be small enough that it's going to fit comfortably in the center of my little design here. So that looks about right. Let me just center that up real quick. All right, so that looks good. Yeah, okay, cool. And if you wanted to go in and maybe, for instance, round out the corners or so, just create this little cloverleaf shape. That's one thing you could do too. You could make it multiple points. You can even draw a little heart, like if you want to do a little ring of hearts. Hearts are pretty simple to draw with the pen tool. Easier to draw with like a square and a couple circles and stuff. But there you go. All right, so that's that. So I want to keep this. I'm going to move this off to the side here. What I will do, I'm actually going to drag this over to my brush window here. So I've got my brush window open. I'm going to drag this over and just drop it on in. And once again, create a pattern brush. And from here, you can do a variety of things. If you want to make it a little bit smaller, if you want to have it varied, there's some options for that. You can make it about half again between each set. You want to maybe have them overlap as they go as they cross each other on corners, which is not really applicable here since it's going to be since it's going to be a circle, there's no corners. You can make it about 100% in terms of the spacing. That's probably what I'll do. I'll probably make it 100%. I might actually make it 150% just to mix things up, to make it a little bit different from what I have before. And I'll press OK. And with that done, I can click on my little line and I can click on my pattern brush, and boom, I've got my little pattern brush here. So I'm going to turn this to where the top star is pointed upwards. Just select everything. Just going to rotate it around here. That looks good. Okay, cool. And I'll click on this, and I'll just go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. And with this selected, and I get the direct select tool, A on the keyboard, and hold down Shift and grab the ring behind it, all minus front. And so now we've got that punched out. That's a lot of fun. Okay, so for this sort of shallowly curved thing here, what I did was I went to, I kind of zoomed out a good deal. So, oops, let's make sure we unify all this. Let's go Path Finder over here and just unify all that. So I can just kind of grab that and move it around. I can just go ahead and get rid of the star. Hey, I got a star hanging over there. I zoomed out quite a bit for this next bit, so I could draw a very large circle because I want a very shallow arc in comparison to the circle I've got above. So the way we create a shallow arc is by creating a bigger circle and just grabbing a small sort of arc from that. So I'm just going to draw this really big circle here. Yeah, in sort of relation to one another. This one right here is, say for instance, like 600 pixels, and this right here is about 2,000 pixels. So they're a good deal. There's a good contrast in size here. With that done, I'll make this maybe a different color here, and I'll pull the opacity down just so I can kind of see what I'm looking at. And I'm going to offset this path as well. And in this case, maybe like 200 pixels might work, or maybe 100 pixels might work. Negative 100 pixels. Just to, there we go, and I'll press OK, and make sure this is all centered to itself, and I can go ahead and just grab this and minus front, and I'll have this little ring here. Now to get this little segment right here in the center, I just need a square. So I'll get my square here, and I'll just make a little square, big square in comparison to our original logo. And I'll just rotate it, hold down Shift, rotate it 45 degrees, and I'll sort of center it here. Now, this is, again, where you can make some decisions. Let me just make this a different color, say, for instance, green, and I'll reduce the opacity to about 20% or so. You can see a couple of things. You can see where this is going to end, and you can also see, for instance, where it's going to, how shallow the shall we say, the angle is here. If you want a very sharp angle, that's fine. If you want to say, for instance, go to your shape builder tool and just click once on this, and then get your move tool and hold down the Alt key and drag the corners in some, and you can make the corners a little less extreme and just sort of drag them down to where you want them to go. I might just try that for now. Well, either way, once you do that, you want to make sure that this has been centered, and then you can select both of these and just click on intersect. And so now you've got this little bit here. I can sort of bring this opacity back up to 100%. So I'm going to just leave this here. I'm going to Alt drag this down, and let's create some these little tails here. The way we did that was simply by, actually, you know what, never mind. I'm just going to grab this guy. I just simply grabbed a square, hold down Shift, or maybe just some sort of rectangle here, and then make another square. And again, just depending on how big you make this, you just want to make sure it's bigger diagonally than the square you've got. And just move it over to a 45-degree angle and select it until like the sides meet the corners. If they go past the corners, that's fine too, but just so they meet the corners here. And just select and minus front. And so now we've got our little tail here. And you can get your direct select tool and grab these little anchor points to make it shorter or longer if you wanted to. You could skew it up, or you could just rotate it. It's up to you. But I'll just rotate this over just slightly, maybe not 45 degrees, just a little bit. And I'll shrink this down to make sure it fits in with the overall length of this ribbon here. I'll make this a different color, say for instance, orange. And I'll just bring this up to the top, Control Shift, and then that square bracket. And then we can do is we can right click on this, we can transform and reflect, and we can copy. All right, so with that done, I'll just drag this guy over this way, and we can select both of these. We can group them together, so group or Control G on the keyboard. Let's make sure they're lined up first. All right, good. All right, good, cool. All right, and let's make sure they're grouped together, and then we'll just line both of these up here. All right, so they're all lined up. Okay, oops. So let me just drag these guys up slightly to kind of match them up, maybe a little bit lower, so as if they're sort of like coming out from behind, and maybe a little bit lower here, just to give it some room to play with. And with that done, we'll just ungroup these. We make sure we ungroup these here. And we'll offset path by, say, for instance, 10 pixels. And let's change the color, say, for instance, to blue. And I'm going to Control C, Control F, which is going to make a little copy. And I'll just make that, say, for instance, red or pink in this case. So with that done, I'll just select the... With this selected, this bigger I'll offset path selected, I'll hold down Shift and select one of my little tails and minus front. I'll grab this blue path here, and I'll hold down Shift, grab the other one, and minus front. And now we've got our little thing here. We can kind of unify these and have them be their one little path. Okay, now things get a little complicated because now we have to cut out not only these three paths, but we also have to cut out the sort of area of the circle here using the same thing. So I'm actually going to make just sort of bring this up here, and we'll just make sure this is centered. And I think I like this the way it is, maybe a little bit higher. And we can just one by one, we can for instance, hit the direct select tool and click on this path here and offset this path by about 10, which is then going to give us the ability, and I'll change the color here to say, for instance, red or pink. Red, okay. And we can, once again, use our direct select tool, but we'll have to, we have to think about what we're going to be cutting out. We're going to be cutting out several things. We're going to be cutting out a bit here. We may be able to ignore this, but we'll definitely have to cut out this inner ring and the outer ring. So let's just hit Control C, Control F, and have that, maybe change that color to say, for instance, orange here. Let's okay, Control C, Control F, and we'll change that to orange. And then once again, with the direct select tool, hold down Shift and select on this, and we can go over here to our Pathfinder tool and minus front. And then we'll just grab our pink and hold down Shift with the direct select tool and select the inner circle and minus front. And now we've got this little cutout here. And I'll just move over to this side here just to keep things simple. And I'll go once again, offset path, 10 pixels. I'll change the color just slightly, and then I'll just Control C, Control F, and I'll change the color slightly again. And once again, with the direct select tool selected, hold down Shift, grab the outer ring, and I'm going to go to Window and Pathfinder. Pathfinder is visible somewhere. Window, Pathfinder, here it is, and I'll just minus front, and I'll grab this guy here and hold down the Shift key with the direct select tool and minus front. Okay, and then lastly, we'll do this. Once again, we want to have 2 copies of this, so I'll just go to offset path 10 pixels, press OK, and I'll change the color just to make sure I know what I'm doing, and I'll just Control C, Control F, and I'll change the color again. This is all just, obviously, if you can keep track of all this, then you don't have to do the Control C, Control F, or changing the colors, rather. But if you're having a hard time keeping up with that, then that might be a thing that you want to keep in mind. Here, oops, I might have accidentally. Okay, there's that. Okay, cool. All right, I'll select this. Hold down Shift, grab this side over here, or rather, not this side, but this inner ring, and minus front. Okay, cool. And we can just select all this, and we can unify this. And maybe change the color to something a little more palatable than this sort of lime green. All right, nice. Cool. All right, so that way we've got a little thing here. Now, in this case, you can add your own text. And your own text could be whatever, but the idea here is that I want to say we should take this right here, this little arc, and we can actually, I want to say, get our direct select tool and just grab this and just sort of alt drag this down, like straight down like this. Maybe change its color to something other than like, you know, that. And I want to say we can get our text tool and alt click on top of that and just type in, you know, and we can even get our direct select tool here. Let's change our layer options just so we can get something that we can see better. And I want to say with this direct select tool selected, we can kind of drag these back some, or maybe even this forward. Yeah, here we go. Okay, drag that back. And maybe we can drag it back and you can sort of select the text and add your own text effects to it. Like, for instance, increasing the spacing, and try to keep it as centered as possible, and it's centered with the with vertically and horizontally here. So with that done, I'll just go to Type and create outlines, and with the A on the keyboard, just click on this and I'll punch this out. And there we go. We've got it. We've got our little medal here with our little message and our fun little pattern brush that we've created. So that's how you create little pattern brushes, and we'll revisit that later on. That'll definitely come in handy as we go through making our logos and making our repeating patterns. All right, very cool. Well, can't wait to see what you guys produce. See you in class.